It's all right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Pajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Pajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Haribol. Okay. Maybe I should move this seat over here about 10 feet. What do you think? Oh, that's right. Yes, I forgot about the internet crowd. There's hundreds out there. I hope. Okay, let's see. Are we, I think we're on 12, 712. Yeah, all right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, before we continue, Shamali, I'm not sure if they're in the lounge. This is Isabella and her daughter, but that may be a good place for them to sit, because I don't know if the daughter, if she brings her back in here, to make a disturbance. And I hate to think that they're out there in that cold, you know. If she comes back in here, just hold on to my keys for now. This is the key to the lounge, and she can sit in there. There's even a way of turning the burners on so it's a little warm, you know. All right. Okay. On this 4th day of November 2019 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, and we're on text number 12. Ye chaiva sattvika bhava rajasas tamasascha ye matta eveti tan vidhi natvaham teshu te mayi. Ye chaiva sattvika bhava rajasas tamasascha ye matte ebeti tan vidhi, natvaham teshu te mayi, ye chaiva satvika bhava, rajasas tamasaschaye, matte ebeti tan vidhi, natvaham teshu te mahi. Shakti. Ye chaiva satvika bhava, rajasas tamasaschaye, matte ebeti tan vidhi, natvaham teshu te mayi. Ye chaiva satvika bhava, rajasas tamasaschaye, matte eveti tan vidhi, natvaham teshu te mayi. Shalom. Ye chaiva satvika bhava, rajasas tamasaschaye, matte eveti tan vidhi, natvaham teshu te mayi. I'll read the synonyms. You can read along just silently. Yea, all which, cha, and, eva, certainly, sattvika, in goodness, bhava, states of being, rajasa, in the mode of passion, tamasa, in the mode of ignorance, cha, also, yea, all which, mattaha, from me, eva, certainly, iti, thus, tan, those, vidhi, try to know, na, not, tu, but, aham, I, teshu, in them, te, they, mayi, in me. Translation. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. Purport. All material activities in the world are being conducted under the three modes of material nature. Although these material modes of nature are emanations from the Supreme Lord, Krishna, he is not subject to them. For instance, under the state laws, one may be punished, but the king, the lawmaker, is not subject to that law. Similarly, all the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are emanations from the Supreme Lord, Krishna. But Krishna is not subject to material nature. Therefore, he is nirguna, which means that these gunas or modes, although issuing from him, do not affect him. That is one of the special characteristics of Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, they seem to have taken shelter of the women's bathroom because they couldn't get into the lounge. But there's a night bathroom in there if they wanted to do their thing in there, and that would be better. Yeah, maybe you can mention to them, because even there's a baby in the bathroom with her mother, but she's making a racket. So I'm hoping to relocate them to the bathroom in the lounge. They can have the whole lounge to themselves and be happy. Okay. Did I do Om Jnana yet? I did Om Jnana. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. Okay, so in this section, what Krishna has taught us so far in this chapter is that he's giving us a chance to train our mind to always think of him even in the material world. And what we have a nice whole house for you. Hare Krishna. And so he, after introduction there, he has explained that all that we see in this world, please, you can take a book and have a seat. Beginning with solid matter, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. This is text number 4. These are, Krishna says, these are my energies. We're on page 308 right now. These are my separated material energies. Then there is, that's material energy. Then above that is the spiritual energy. Text 5, para prakriti, or para shakti, which are these living entities. We're sustaining the universe. We're exploiting the resources of material energy. So everything in this world, he says in text 6, is a combination of these two energies, the material and the spiritual energy. And I am the source of both of them. Therefore, I'm the source of everything. Prabhavak pralayastata. Thank you. Now, in text 7, very important verse, he is explaining that, he says, there's nothing superior to me. Matak paratarang nanyat kinchadasti dhananjayad. This verse is often quoted by Srila Prabhupada to defeat the Mayavadis. We're not so concerned with the Mayavadis because we don't live in India, but this impersonal idea actually has pervaded the whole world. So it's important for us to be completely fixed in the understanding that when we keep searching and searching for the absolute source of everything, we're not going to find a Big Bang, we're not going to find an impersonal force, we're going to find a supreme person, who is the supreme personality of Godhead. This text 7 is very important. Everything is strung on me as pearls are strung on a thread. And then beginning in text 8, he gives examples of our senses interacting with these material energies and producing what we experience. Taste, light with the sun and the moon. I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. Why am I all those things? Because they're simply the interactions of my energies. The living entities are his energy. They're coming from him. That's us. And all this this world and our senses themselves producing these sensations. So if we can remember that, we'll always be in Krishna consciousness. But the problem is we can't remember that because we're in the modes of nature. This is what we read today. These interactions are taking place under the modes of nature, and when we're in the lower modes, passion and ignorance, our knowledge is covered. We forget all about the source of everything. We just think about those sensations, and we're in Maya. So that's what he's saying. But in truth, I am the seed of all existences. I am the intelligence of the intelligence, and goes on like that. And then he sums it up in the verse we read today. Know all these states of being, goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I'm independent. I'm not under the modes of material nature, for they in the country are within me. So these modes are our big problem. Having cut ourselves off from Krishna, we can't really break the relationship, that's eternal. But we can forget about it and de-emphasize it and relate really to the external energy. And that's what we've been doing since time immemorial. And so the next verse is going to explain our problem. We're covered by the modes. Mohitam. We're bewildered by them. And therefore we don't understand anything about spirit or God or the relationship. And then the text 14 is another key verse. How we can overcome this illusion and break free of the thrall of these modes. So let's read 13 because it really follows from 12. Tribir gunamaya bhavar ebik sarvamidam jagat mohitam nabijanati mam ebyak paramabhyayam. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. Purport. The whole world is enchanted by the three modes of material nature. Those who are bewildered by these three modes cannot understand that transcendental to this material nature is the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Every living entity under the influence of the material nature has a particular type of body and a particular type of psychological and biological activities accordingly. There are four classes of men functioning in the three material modes of nature. Those who are purely in the mode of goodness are called Brahmins. Those who are purely in the mode of passion are called Kshatriyas. Those who are in the modes of both passion and ignorance are called Vaishyas. Those who are completely in ignorance are called Shudras. And those who are less than that are animals or animal life. However, these designations are not permanent. I may be either a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or whatever. In any case, this life is temporary. But although this life is temporary and we do not know what we are going to be in the next life, By the spell of this illusory energy, we consider ourselves in terms of this bodily conception of life. And we thus think that we are American, Indian, Russian, or Brahmin, Hindu, Muslim, etc. And if we become entangled with the modes of material nature, then we forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is behind all these modes. So Lord Krishna says that living entities deluded by these three modes of nature do not understand that behind the material background is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many different kinds of living entities, human beings, demigods, animals, etc. And each and every one of them is under the influence of material nature. And all of them have forgotten the transcendent personality of Godhead. Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, and even those who are in the mode of goodness, cannot go beyond the impersonal Brahman conception of the absolute truth. They are bewildered before the Supreme Lord in his personal feature, which possesses all beauty, opulence, knowledge, strength, fame, and renunciation. When even those who are in goodness cannot understand, what hope is there for those in passion and ignorance? Krishna consciousness is transcendental to all these three modes of material nature, and those who are truly established in Krishna consciousness are actually liberated. So this idea of the modes of nature is really important, because the modes of nature are in here. They're like in our mind. It's not really that they're out there so much. We are affected by the modes, and according to what mode and combination of modes, because there's unlimited really, what percentage of passion, goodness, and ignorance, you will see yourself. You will have a conception of who you are, of what this world is, of what is important, what you should strive for. All kinds of things. There's music in the modes of nature, food in the mode of nature, art. Everything is in that. Characterized by the modes of nature. And we hear more details of how to recognize these modes in the 14th chapter. That's the title of the three modes of material nature. So Krishna consciousness is really a process of purifying ourselves and coming up out of the lower modes of nature until we're in the mode of goodness, and finally in the mode of pure goodness. Because even the material mode of goodness is tinged by passion and ignorance. And Krishna explains, and even someone who's predominantly in the mode of goodness will sometimes fall into the mode of passion and even the mode of ignorance. This is what's going on. So the more the lower modes control us, the more in illusion we'll be, and the more less receptive to transcendental knowledge and higher thoughts like this. Yeah, we've experienced ourselves, sometimes, I just know I'm sleeping in. That's it. I've had a rough week, and I just, that's the mode of ignorance taking over. Finally, it's Sunday morning. I used to sleep till 12, you know what I mean? Oh, what a relief, That's the mode of ignorance. Just zone out, forget everything. But human life is meant for sharpening our intelligence and our consciousness so that we can really understand what's going on, and we can apply our consciousness and our unique human intelligence to advancing toward this goal of, one, liberation from the bondage of matter, and two, which is really the ultimate goal, going back home, back to Godhead, which is synonymous with attaining this prema pamartha mahan. There's these little phrases that you learn, that one, prema pamartha mahan. This is part of a verse. Artha is a goal, something valuable, and mahan means the supreme. The supreme goal of the pum. Pum is short for pumsa, or person, or human being. The supreme goal of human beings is prema. This is Lord Chaitanya's teachings. This one verse encompasses like a whole summary of Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Maybe I'll share it with you later. But that's like a key phrase in there, prema pamartha mahan. So, that's completely unknown. I mean, people don't know that's the strive. They strive for something material in different modes of nature. But that's, if you can attain that, you're already back to Godhead, even though you may be on this plane. Your consciousness is with Krishna, and you're experiencing life, and it's saturated with the divine, to be. So that's really what we're aiming for. But it starts with, okay, what's our situation here? And that, Krishna has been explaining it, that we're a combination of matter and spirit, every organism, right? Our body is really this complicated machine made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and subtle, mind, intelligence, and ego. Those are also material. And we each have this unique combination of those things, and that's called our body, or gross and subtle bodies. And we're interacting with the world through those bodies in these ways. We have to see the light of the sun, we have the taste and the fragrances and all these different combination of things, and subtly. And with all of that interaction, we've completely forgotten God. We've forgotten the source of everything. So human life means to apply our intelligence to that. This famous phrase, atato brahma jigyasa, where it means that having become a human being, you should inquire into the ultimate source of everything. That's called Brahman. And then how are we going to inquire? The third sutra, which is not so much known, Shastra Yonitvat, by inquiring from Shastra and those who are living the Shastra. So, is there any discussion on these two verses that we read? The Tribhi Gunamaya Bhava, everyone in the world, more or less, to what degree, is bewildered by these three modes of nature. Bewildered means we're flying blind. We don't really have any understanding of what the goal of life is, where we're going, where we came from. We need that knowledge to live successfully in this, in human form. So, now the text 14, which is perhaps the most quoted verse in this whole chapter. Daiviyesha gunamahi mama maya duratya mamevaye papadyante mayame tantarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to contamination by the inferior nature, matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya-Baddha. Now this word eternal, there are certain words that in ordinary in English, they're kind of absolute, like eternal. If it's eternal, it's eternal. It's not going to stop. Maybe you can think of a one-way eternal. It used to not exist, now it exists, but it will exist eternally in the future. That's maybe a little compromise. But in ordinary English parlance, eternal means eternal. But you'll find, as you read Prabhupada's books and you understand the philosophy, that eternal means like Nitya-Baddha. The word Nitya-Baddha here means eternally bound, eternally conditioned. But when you really explore the word in the philosophy, right, we've been bound so long that it might as well be eternal. But there was a beginning to it, and there can be an end to it. But in the ordinary life, I mean, the time spans that we think about are just inconceivable. For instance, Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is like the engineer of the universe, the first created being. And the Greeks had a name for it, demiurge, or something like that. In other words, he's a living entity like us, but he lives for an inconceivably long time. His body is primarily made of intelligence. Ours is mostly water and earth, Other beings have different percentages. But because his body is so fine, he lives for, this is our Brahma, the other Brahmas, lives for 311 trillion, 40 billion years. That's a long time. It might as well be eternal, So we've been going around and around with different bodies, human bodies, subhuman bodies, superhuman bodies, but all living entities, for maybe thousands of lifetimes of Brahma. That's how long. That might as well be eternal. But we should know that we can end it. We can end it in this lifetime. Or at least we can move toward ending it, whereas in all these other lifetimes, you're just going up and down with no idea of what we're doing. This This is what Prabhupada has offered us here, this eternal knowledge. So Nitya Baddha can become Nitya Mukta. Baddha means bound, Mukta means liberated. By Krishna consciousness, we can come to that state of going back home, back to Godhead, and Krishna promises several places in this Gita, then you won't come back here again. It's the principle, Prabhupada explained, that, we have this phrase in English, once burned, twice shy. We did that already. I'm not going back there. There's a little bit of a memory when you go back. Says, I tried that. that's kind of how he explains it. So, but conditioned soul, we virtually eternally. That's why it's eternally conditioned. No one, Prabhupada says, no one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. But there was a date. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult, even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of this cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows: Mayam tu prakatim vidyan, mahinam tu maheshwaram. Although Maya, illusion, is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshwar, the supreme controller. Shvetashvatara Upanishad 4.10. Another meaning of guna is rope. Notice it says gunamayi, made of the gunas. So he's giving a further, deeper understanding. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna, or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service, or Krishna consciousness, can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entity, who is originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get free from the clutches of the stringent material nature. The words Mam Eva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna or Vishnu only, and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and are almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajoguna, passion, and Tamoguna, ignorance, to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya. Therefore, he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Shvetashvara Upanishad 3.8, confirm this in the phrase Tameva Viditva. This is from the section that we read here, I think. Tameva Viditva, or freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Krishna. He says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnu Eva Nasangsheha. There's no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. So, here's the solution to our problem. This is, first of all, we have to recognize the problem. It's just like if you have a disease, the first step is diagnosis. Without diagnosis, there's no treatment. So, those who are in ignorance, who have no understanding of this philosophy, we are faced with all of these problems. Birth, old age, disease, and death, the fires, economic disasters, there's one thing after another. They've categorized them in different ways. The threefold miseries. We all experience these, but it's nice to know, these categories. The Adi-Daivika miseries, which are, sometimes they become very prominent, just like these fires. This Adi-Daivika. They're not intentionally caused, sometimes they are, but mostly they're not intentionally caused by human beings. But they're the result of the powerful wind and some spark, or maybe the electricity, whatever. There's something you can't avoid. They're just like earthquakes, and hurricanes and all these different things. They happen. So that certainly causes sometimes mass suffering, as you can see. It uproots your routine like anything. Then there's the adibhautika miseries. I'm always reminded of this play I read when I was an existentialist, back when I was a kid, back in the 60s. I don't know if you ever dabbled in existentialism. But there was this playwright, I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre, and he wrote this play called No Exit, a very, depressing play. And in that play, there was, the only thing I remember, this one phrase, hell is other people. Can you imagine and have a mentality like that? Great. But that means, they just got through World War II, that everything was colored by that, But that's adibhautic, just like, the homeless, okay, you have a little mercy on the homeless, but so many of them come, let me move away, let's do something. Or just wars and things, or just insects, plagues, that's other living beings causing you trouble. And then your own body and mind. It could be a perfectly sunny day, there's no adidaivic miseries, nobody else is bothering you, but you're troubled by something, and your own mind is giving you such trouble. PTSD, you can't forget some horrible situation, it stays with you. So these are these three divisions. Adhyatmic, your own body and mind, adibhautic, other living beings, and adidaivic, from the gods. So, and then on top of that, you have these four that are just like built in: birth, old age, disease, and death. So that's why Krishna says, Dukkha alaya shashvatam. In the next chapter, he will say, Mamo pecha punarjanma dukkha alaya shashvatam napdavanti. If you attain me, you come back to me in the spiritual world, you won't have to suffer anymore in this world, which is an abode of dukkha, of suffering. This is ultimately like a prison house. That's what the very word Durga means. You can't go, you can't leave on your own. You're stuck here, birth after birth after birth. It's a place of punishment. But more importantly, it's a place of reform. That's why Krishna doesn't abandon us here. He stays with us as the Super Soul. He's trying to give us good instruction. Of course, we're not hearing him, but he's trying. And then he comes outside. Okay, they're not hearing me. Now let me go outside as the book, the good book, and the teachers, Guru, Shastra, Guru, and the sadhus, to teach. Somehow or other, he's trying to enlighten us, because, as explained here, we're his children. Didn't it used to be? Remember the children of God? So I don't know if they're still around. Children of God. Okay, they got it right. We're all children of God. But how can we realize that and act on that platform? That's Krishna Kanda. That's bhakti. How we can actually and break down all of these false barriers. Age and race and language and all of this stuff. It's all just pertaining to the external body. Oh, you're wearing a green thing, and you're wearing a gray thing. And why don't you fight with it? That's the level that it's on. It's just, it's insane. We all share the reality that we're spirit souls. We're Atma, part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. We're all brother and sister. And when we actually work with Krishna in the center, we can realize that. We can be perfectly harmonious. It's forgetting that center that we establish all of these warring factions, beginning with individuals and tribes and gangs and states and countries and whatever. So, therefore, Krishna says, this material energy, characterized by the three modes that I just described, it's divine because it's connected to me. He says, Daivayesha Gunamayi, means made of the gunas, these three modes. Mama Maya, it's mine, and it's Duratya. It says difficult to cross over. Let's say very, 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 very difficult, impossible. It's impossible to cross over on your own, but if you surrender to me, then you can easily cross beyond it. Why? Because Maya is Krishna's servant. She has the thankless task of being the prison warden. You're not going to get out on your own. You have to reestablish that relationship of service and surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what bhakti is all about. And then you actually can feel yourself, even just beginning to progress, that you're less entangled by this material energy. And you understand the truth that the more that you want to try to exploit it and enjoy it, the more that Maya has control of you. It's just like a drug. There's a verse in the 15th chapter, I remember reading this because I'm always dealing with words and looking up in the dictionary, sometimes Sanskrit dictionary. So there's a verse describing very nice detail the process of transmigration. And he says how the soul leaves the body, and it's just like, according to the consciousness we've developed, it's like a wind taking a fragrance. It can pass over a garbage heap and it's very unpleasant, or a flower garden is very pleasant. So the consciousness that we've developed, the soul takes that consciousness with it, and that is the template of your next body. So then he says very graphically, Shrotram, Chakshum, Sparshanamcha, Rasanam, Granam, Evacha, Adhishtaya, Manashchaya, Vishayanupasevate. Then the living entity gets a certain kind of ear and sense of smell and sight and hearing and all these five senses grouped around the mind. And then Vishayanupasevate. And this word upasevate, I looked it up. And Prabhupada says, and therefore he enjoys a certain set of sense objects. You know, if you're in the dog's body, you got a different set of, you got the ear and everything, but you're attracted to a certain. So this upasevate can also mean addicted. You become addicted to a certain set of sense objects, according to the body that you take. You know. So that addiction means you're just so habituated to enjoying in a certain way or experiencing in such a way. And it could be on a subtle platform. I mean, they're saying that, what was it that's addictive? Oh, the video games. Video games. I have to confess, I was in the movement, and when the first video game, what was it? Pokemon? What was the one? The first one? Pac-Man. You never tried it? Pac-Man. It was like very crude. Do you remember that? I don't think it was even on your computer. You had to go. They had it in the supermarket. You'd go there, and then you'd just play. And I remember playing that. You know, I said, "What am I doing here?" You know what I mean? And then there was Donkey Kong. You remember Donkey Kong? I had like an hour or two that I wasted with Donkey Kong one time. What am I doing with this stupid thing? But it grabs you, and that was like so rudimentary. Now it's like you're the first person shooter. You identify. You have your avatar, right? It's not like you can get totally in the game. These poor kids, we don't know. Like in Korea, the internet is much faster and much cheaper. You know, somehow they've got that. You know, here you have to pay so much, and you still can't upload and download. But there, that means that the games are much easier to play and more involving. These poor kids, sometimes they stay hour after hour after hour. They forget themselves on there. But one poor kid died in one of these internet cafes. His head hit the keyboard, and everyone next to him, they didn't even notice. It went on and on for hours. Yeah, it's happened more than once. This is how addictive these things are. So it's really tragic, but it's a metaphor, if you will, for just ordinary material life. You get accustomed to a certain kind of food, a certain kind of relationship, the language, everything, and that's what you identify with. But it's not you. It's your soul conditioned by a certain body and environment. And then you leave that and go to a whole different environment, maybe a whole different species. And this is what we're facing here in this material world. So, knowing this, we should be very eager to learn how we can get back to our actual life, which is eternal life full of bliss and knowledge, which really doesn't really describe it very well, because we can't, that's unknown to us. But it doesn't have what we have in this material, which was so much anxiety because it's so temporary. No matter what platform you get on. Imagine yourself, I assume no one here is a multi-millionaire, billionaire, You are, right? He's hidden. No, I'm just kidding. But, just try to imagine a life like that. How much is at your control? You're sitting in some palatial house somewhere, I don't know, in a certain part of California that's ideal, And there you are, you have your parties, and this way you fly off here, you have your home in Aspen, you have a home in this country, that country. It's like, then what? Is that all there is? There's still so much anxiety. Somebody's trying to steal so much money. I only have 2 billion. These guys have 10 billion, I mean, it's like that, isn't it? There's no end to it. But you realize there is an end to it. I'm getting older, and in other words, you try mightily, you spend millions, to try to keep your youth, have this drug, this diet, that diet. But it's futile. You can't hold on to it. Krishna says, Yehi Sangsparshita Bhoga Dukkha Yona Evate Ajantamantan Kotayana Techu Ramate Buddha. In the fifth chapter he said, the pleasures you experience by the senses, contacting the sense objects, is the very source of your misery. Those pleasures have a beginning and an end, and the wise don't take their pleasure there. Well, that means that they take their pleasure somewhere else, right? Yes. Previous verse. Bhayasparsheshu asaktatma dindatyatma niyat sukham sabbrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnate. Sukham akshaya means unbreakable happiness. They enjoy renouncing these external flickering pleasures of Maya. They search out that source of pleasure within, where Krishna is. He's the reservoir of pleasure. We have the little pamphlet. And therefore they learn, they train themselves how to taste Brahma Sukha, spiritual happiness that doesn't end. What does it say? By Vinda Yatsukam Sab Brahma Yoga Yuktatma, linked up to Brahman through yoga, bhakti yoga. Sukham Akshayam. Akshaya means unbroken, Ashnate. So this is the promise to come to the state. It's unimaginable to us now. But you can even taste it on this platform. Like we have these marathon kirtan melas. I'm sure you've been to your share, probably more than me. And you go on for hours. You're chanting that Hare Krishna mantra. It's the same word again. Obviously, there's something spiritual about it, right? It doesn't get tiring. Prabhupada says, try chanting, Coca-Cola, see what it gets. I don't want to hear it anymore. But you never come to that point. It just breaks through. The mind, surrenders, and you become more and more enthralled with that sound because it's transcendental. And then you can get a taste, and you can begin to realize, suppose I had the appreciation of Rupa Goswami. On Sunday I chanted this verse. I don't know if you're here. Tunde tanda banida ting batanade tundavali labde. He says, I don't know how much nectar these two syllables Krishna have produced. When I chant them, they dance in the mouth. I want to have millions of mouths to taste it, When they enter the ears, I want to have millions of ears. And when they enter the heart, the mind becomes completely fixed on Krishna, and then I become in trance. Or how about Raghunath Das Goswami? Now these are super renounced individuals. Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami. Rupa Goswami, he was the right hand. He and his brother were the right and left hand of the king. You can imagine the material opulences they had. But they renounced it all under the influence of Lord Chaitanya, went to Vrindavan, and showed the super levels of renunciation. Talk about homeless. They're original homeless, no home. What did they do? They live under a tree, one after another. But they're not like these poor homeless people who are in so much anxiety and don't know what to do. They're at the highest levels of consciousness. Gopi bhavada samatabda lahali kalola magnomohor. Again and again they're diving and surfacing in the nectarian ocean of the gopis' love for Krishna, the highest levels of ecstatic experience. And they so much so that they practically gave up eating, sleeping. They ate, if they remembered to eat, they would eat once a day, a little chapati or something, and they slept maybe an hour and a half a day, and they spent the time writing. And what were they writing? I'll give you a sample. I called to mind, I think I mentioned this on Sunday, there's this song, actually today's very appropriate because it's the disappearance of Srinivasacharya. And he wrote these 8 verses about the 6 Goswamis, which Srila Prabhupada sings and has become famous. And one of the lines there is, Papo tapa nakuntano tanubatam govindagana amritai. That Papa utapa means severe suffering due to severe sin. Papa is sin, and utapa means great suffering. It's all around us. But they're nakuntano, they're negating that. They're relieving that, cutting it off. How? By pouring down nectarian songs about Govinda. In other words, if you absorb your mind, and there's a play, the 2 plays by Rupa Goswami about Krishna's dealings in Vrindavan. So enthralling, beautiful verses and so on. So Rupa Goswami, he writes, or Raghunath Das Goswami, he's another one. He would have been what we could call a billionaire today. The sole heir to a huge fortune, landowners and everything. Gave it all up, went to Jagannath Puri, became completely renounced, and was there with Lord Chaitanya. So he writes about his experience of the holy name. He's instructing his tongue, how to chant and how to taste the holy name. It says, Radheti nama navasundara siddhu mugdam. You've heard this one before? Krishneti nama madhuradbhuta gara dugdam. Savakshanam sudabhiraga himena ramyam kritvata daiva pibame rasane chudarte. He says, so when we chant Hare Krishna, we're actually chanting the names of Radha and Krishna. Hare is the evocative form of Hara, which is a name for Radharani. It means she who steals away Krishna's mind and his heart. Hara, is it? And of course Krishna is there, his name. And Rama is actually another name of Krishna, means the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. So he says, an excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes. Such is the name of Radha, by whom all three worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet. Such is the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then at every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. This is Raghunath Das Goswami. He's experiencing that. So this is a whole different level of existence we can't imagine. It doesn't need, you don't need anything external, basically, It's just, you need other devotees, that's basically it. But there's no consumption going on there. It's revolutionary. And this is what Srila Prabhupada came to give, and this is what the Bhagavatam is giving in the Bhagavad Gita. That one verse I mentioned about Krishna spoke, that your sense pleasures are the source of your misery, it's kind of depressing, because then how are we going to enjoy? Well, then he tells you, learn how to taste transcendental pleasure. And you can laugh at and scorn all of these so-called temptations, the billboards, nothing, forget it. I don't need it. Just give me, devotee association, simple clothes, the deities, the holy name, service. You can be completely happy, That's what human society is meant to be, focused on that. Otherwise, the whole consumption, society, which America has passed that on to everyone, they aspire to be like that, is destroying the earth, the very habitat that we live in. The basics of food and air. You can't even breathe in Delhi today. Did you know that? New Delhi is unlivable today. The air pollution has gotten 15 times worse than Beijing. People, they've stopped flying in there. People are walking around with the masks and everything. Already it was bad. I mean, I actually bought a full-on gas mask for my trips to India because I knew I'd have to go into Delhi. And I remember I went from Vrindavan to Delhi, which is about an hour drive or whatever. And I was wearing my gas mask and lying down in the back of the taxi. And that was like 20 years ago. It was an Israeli gas mask. It was a really good one. Full on. You see, when I put it on, people are like, wait a minute, what does he know that we don't know? I knew that would be there. Huh? Yeah, I think it was before 2001. I haven't been back, actually. I might do it, because, they'd probably arrest me. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. But the point is, I have sensitive lungs. I grew up in the New York area. I lived in Philadelphia, which is just, near New Jersey, all this stuff. And I kind of have sensitive lungs, so I used to get chronic bronchitis in the winter when I lived in the Northeast, And Krishna, luckily, he put me down in Miami, and so I was able to, and this is even better because it's drier, But it's, it's that's just what the world is. But that's, in other words, the material life as it's constituted in the world today can't go on this way. The limits of habitat have been reached. But the devotee life is simple living, high thinking. You live small carbon footprint, and don't consume much, really. But simple living, high thinking. That high thinking is fully satisfying, and that's actually how we should live. Yeah, that was Prabhupada's phrase, simple living, I think. The idea, I mean, he wanted to have farms. We started farms where you could really live a very simple agrarian life. All right, we have a few minutes. Are there any questions on these? We can resume this. Now, this is, those who surrender to me cross beyond it. And then the next verse, Prabhupada quoted an awful lot. Who doesn't surrender? And what's their qualities? Mudhas and the Radhamas, In other words, Krishna doesn't mince any words. There's no time. I mean, the battle is about to begin. Every verse is important. Okay, this one will require a little more attention. It's a long verse and purport. So what we can do is review what we've learned. This idea that Tribhu Gunamaya Bhavara, that these modes of nature, it's like, something you've lived with all our lives, for many lives, but until we understand it, it's almost like a fish. What does he know of water? I don't even know what water is. What are you talking about? You're living in it. In other words, it's so close that you don't understand it. But these modes of nature are really what constitutes the ropes that are tying us here. This analogy of you can't be free, but except by someone who's unfree. You can't be freed from it, be untied, or you cut the ropes. So that's a very important point. This idea of being in so much illusion and delusion that if everybody around you is in the same illusion, then how do you have a chance to get free of it? I remember this was actually a very wonderful thing that Hayagriva pulled out of the Greek, the Plato philosophy. This Plato's cave, it's very illuminating. That he said, I think it was Socrates started and Plato wrote it down. That imagine, people raised in this cave, and all they know is these flickering shadows that are being projected on a wall in front of them. There's a fire behind them, and they're projecting these shadows, and that's all they know. So what are they going to do? Wow, look at that shadow. That really moved fast. The whole thing is it's very crippled. And then so one day, one guy breaks out of the cave, and somehow he makes his way up to the surface, and the sunlight is blinded for a little while. Finally, he looks out, and there's a whole world out there that he never knew about. And so he takes note of it, and he looks at the sun and all these animals and the trees, and there's the ocean over there. So what is he going to do? Well, he wants to go back down and see if he can tell his friends in the cave, life isn't just a bunch of shadows, So he goes down there, and he finally gets their attention, shadows aren't everything. Listen to what, I just got out, let me tell you. And they don't believe him. It doesn't compute, They think he's deluded, he's crazy, right? Lock him up. So that's the that's like the what happens, oftentimes to great preachers like Srila Prabhupada, is that we had this whole era, the deprogramming era. You remember that? Where they were trying to think, oh, my child has been taken in by this dangerous cult, and they've taught him all of this crazy nonsense. He's no more interested in his career, and he's not so much interested in us anymore. So they actually were able to hire kidnappers to kidnap him, and then and they would take the devotees off, and not just us. There was other groups, the Moonies and the Scientologists and people, and so they would keep him in a house somewhere, and try to force him. The only thing they eat was meat and this and that. It was horrible. And so there was some, there was that's where, and for try to brainwash them so that they would give up their faith in Krishna consciousness. It was very hard. They said we were the hardest ones to break. And many of the devotees went through that. There was a devotee in L.A. His wife, Srikanta's wife, I forget her name now. But they deprogrammed, but she escaped, and then she had a big marriage, and it was, we plugged it up big for the news stories and everything. But finally, there was a case in New York
that became very well known. You know, New York is the media capital of the world. And Adi Keshava, you remember the whole thing. And, you know, he had to go through so many days. And finally, the judge handed down a very important judgment. It says, this Krishna consciousness is a bona fide religion. And he gave, you know, and he read up on it a little bit and said, it's just like Christianity. You can't just, if someone wants to be a Christian, you can't, this is the, you know, the freedom of religion and so forth. So he just knocked the case out. When Prabhupada heard that and got the newspaper, he said, oh, now my movement is successful. Finally, we've been recognized as a bona fide religion, you know. So, but the idea is that people who are in complete illusion, they see belief in God as crazy. There's some very militant atheists, you know, who get on TV and write the books and so forth, you know. They're completely sold out to science as the only way of knowing things. But that's the whole idea, that we're in a bond, or in a bind here of illusion. And if we keep trying to use our limited senses and mind to understand, we can never understand what's by definition beyond the senses and mind, which is the supreme absolute truth. That our mind and senses are limited. So having that faith in the process by which our, you know, transcendental senses can be awakened is an essential step. And that's, you know, it begins really with the chanting and the hearing and the understanding and trying to live the life. Okay, now it is time to adjourn. We'll have our kirtan in a few minutes. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Tomorrow we'll have same time, same station.